Hi, my name's Fabian Baker. I'm the Managing Director of Kingsrose Mining. We're ASX listed, and we recently announced the sale of our Way Linggo asset in Indonesia, which leaves us incredibly well financed. We'll be sitting with close to $38 million in cash. And we recently acquired some exceptional PGE nickel-copper assets in Scandinavia, and we're building a strategy around those minerals in that region.
Fabian, good to see you again. I think we saw you recently back in July with Merlin, went through a sort of technical session then. Today, I want to focus on the money though, because as you say, the sale or the agreement for the sale of Way Linggo in Indonesia brings a bunch of money into 7.5 million US, which is about what, Aussie? Something 10, 11?
Yeah, it's a little over 11.5 million Aussie.
Right, 38 million to 38 million in cash, market cap 38 million, enterprise value not a lot. Funny position to be in. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, I question that as well, but I think ultimately it's got to be a good thing. Sitting there so well financed, it gives us so much opportunity, especially in this market.
Right. So, well, there's the big question, and I think that's the kind of focus for me today. We'll get the update on the two projects, of course, but the question that people are going to be asking is, have this team got a plan? Have they got a strategy for spending the money and creating incremental value here? So you've got the cash, you're in a lucky position to have cash in this market, you've kind of got optionality. So what are you going to do with it?
Sure. Well, the flagship asset for Kingsrose now is the Penikat in Finland. So we fairly recently announced a JORC exploration target on that, which is on the back of 100 historical drill holes that we've managed to collate and reassay a lot of those and verify those grades. And ultimately that indicated a potential resource in excess of 7 million ounces at over 7 grams combined PGEs, and basically pitches the project as the highest grade PGE exploration asset globally. So ultimately that's going to really underpin value in Kingsrose. And so we're driving that project forward through permitting at the moment so that we can be drilling it, but that drilling will be in late 2023. Once we get through the permitting process for that drilling.
Right. So, but how do you get that? Because you've got that Natura 2000 thing going on there, where it's kind of like what is it? It's the local version of an EIA.
Okay, so Natura 2000 is an EU term, and it covers about 20% of the surface area of the EU. So it's not a national park or a zone where mining isn't allowed. In fact, the Penikat area, it's actually built into the founding documents that exploration is allowed. It just means that it's an area of increased environmental importance. There's a wetland a few kilometers off to the side of us. And so what we have to do before we start drilling is do some habitat and species surveys just to recognize, are there any important areas that we need to avoid? So we've spent this summer doing those surveys. We've actually got an in-house full-time head of sustainability who's a PhD environmental scientist, and so she's been leading that. We've completed the surveys. There's very little in the way of sensitive habitats, but what we're able to do now is pinpoint our drill locations and submit that for approval. And so that's an approval process that we expect will be complete around the middle of next year, around June. However, we're committing to only drill when there's snow cover on the ground, because that protects that ground surface, and that'll be commencing in around December 2023. And we'll have a roughly 5-month season through into April, and we can use snow cannons and so on to sort of thicken up the snowpack in areas to be drilling.
Right. So here's the other bit to this is like it's kind of like it's a slow run up. So it feels like a slow run up. So in terms of like news flow and what you can be talking to the market about, and also giving us an understanding of the importance of those things too, how do you kind of give us comfort that the money, again, is being spent wisely or judiciously whilst we're waiting for the actual drill program to start?
Yeah, well, I think first of all on Penikat, you're right. There's a limit to what we can do there. Actually, right now the bird is in the air. We have a drone flying a large-scale airborne mag survey, which just commenced yesterday. So that's up and running. But other than that, yes, we're just working towards the drill permits. But what it does allow us to do is really lay the foundations with the local communities and with the authorities, so that once we hit the ground, we can hit the ground running and move that forward really quickly. So So what we've done is internally we've looked at our cash position, and we've ring-fenced enough money to take Penikat through 2 years of drilling to a maiden resource and a scoping study, plus the 3 years of G&A running our business to get to that point. And so we've ring-fenced that, and we understand what that'll cost. And so we're not sitting idly on waiting for that to happen. We've got a significant surplus, which we can put towards exploration and developing a broader strategy in Scandinavia. And we're pretty ambitious, and we see a lot of opportunity in that region, and especially in the current market. So we've got a team that are really actively putting together a combination of more regional exploration plays, but also potential acquisitions in Scandinavia, centered around nickel and copper assets.
Right, but okay, and how do you get that balance between not stretching yourselves too thin and giving the news to the market on the assets that you've got? Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, you sort of end up with a sort of large portfolio player. So when you say take advantage of, what precisely are you looking for?
Well, yeah, so we recognize the news flow gap with Penikat. We do currently have another earlier stage asset in Norway at Porsanger, and we just announced the results of an EM survey there. That's earlier stage, and we did get a really strong conductive anomaly downdip from the historical drilling and quite good surface results. So that's given us a clear target to drill test. And so we spent this winter working with the local community and actually the indigenous reindeer herders there to organize when and how we'll be drilling that in the spring and summer of next year. So there's going to be a drill program happening at that project, although quite limited to test a clear target. But given that gap and our excess capacity, we do see space to bring in another sort of significant asset into the portfolio. And really that's the focus. So our aim is to bring in particularly just one more advanced exploration, very sort of exciting drill-ready nickel-copper asset into the portfolio. And we think that combined with Penikat will actually be complementary. The team throughout in the region can grow with two projects to move forwards. There'll be a lot of synergies between those. And obviously, with Penikat being more of a winter drilling sort of scenario, what we can do is keep the other project rolling through this process through the years and maintain news flow and activity.
Right. Okay. So, so copper and nickel is a big part of Porsanger. What's the sort of balance? Because you've got a bit of historic data up at Penikat. Is it more PGE project?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
That's right.
So how do you excite the market about that? Because again, it's one we talked about this before. It's like, you know, if people just don't understand it, they don't understand the market for it, and they don't understand the pricing, and therefore it's easy kind of to ignore. So again, it's one of those sort of potentially orphan commodities in that sense. So again, how do you get people to actually understand it, get excited about it in the way that you are?
Well, you're right. PGEs have historically been quite a niche business. Basically, global supply is dominated by production in South Africa at the Bushveld complex. There's a very high-grade deposit called the Stillwater deposit in the US, acquired by the major Sibanye Stillwater, and some production out of Russia. And these types of good PGE deposits are very rare, actually. And that's what was so compelling about Penikat. There are very few of these high-grade and very large, extensive PGE-rich layered intrusions. And so Penikat's among a small group of quite unique global deposits. And we have that, and we're really excited about driving that forwards. But because of that niche sort of component and how rare these types of deposits are, it's not the only part of our strategy going forwards. Actually, we aren't interested in looking for sort of low-grade bulk tonnage PGE targets, because ultimately we don't think that fits well with our strategy of sort of low-impact, sustainable mining, because Penikat can be an underground, sustainable, low-footprint operation and is such a unique high-grade asset. So because of its uniqueness, we're very happy to take that on. And I think when you look at it from for example, pure from a dollar sort of financial point of view, when you look at the dollar value of the rock that we'll be looking at there with the high grades, the potential margins on a mining project are going to be really, really compelling. So So I think what we can do is demonstrate that Penikat is a rare opportunity outside of Russia and South Africa. It's the highest grade PGE opportunity globally outside of those areas. And so where is a PGE supply going to come from next? I think Finland's a great candidate with a project like ours. So that's why Penikat's so compelling. But beyond that, Scandinavia and related to the style of mineralization at Penikat, you've got great opportunity for nickel and copper.
Okay.
Penikat has a nickel and copper credit, but we want dominant nickel copper assets to complement it.
Right. Okay. Which makes sense. So just back on the money side of things again, and making sure you're spending it wisely, is when you're looking for an advanced exploration play, are you talking about, I mean, how big, how much money will you utilize that from your cash at the moment? Because again, it's one of those things that you need to show people that the money will still be there in 18 months' time, and that you've got some, say hopefully some news flow moving into this drilling. And before we can get some sort of credit for that, you've also got a market where we don't quite know when it's going to end. Thank you, Jamie Dimon. He's telling us that potentially. We're 6 to 9 months away from all hell breaking loose. So it's uncertain times. But at the same time, you don't want to burn through that cash.
Absolutely. We're I think approaching it from that same point of view. So when I say advanced, I'm not talking about a large established resource or something like that. What we're looking for is, in general, is that sweet spot where there is evidence of ore-grade mineralization, either in historical drill holes or historical resources, but we can see a geological concept for how that can really expand, and we can explore and grow that. So these, especially in this market, we're not talking about particularly expensive deals. I mean, where we're sitting today at trading essentially at cash, we don't have leverage to our cash position, so we're not looking to do a big transaction sort of for stock and see significant dilution to our shareholders. We see the potential, particularly at Penikat, and the last thing we want to do is at this stage dilute people from that potential value down the road. So we're still looking at low cost deals, and one other way of looking at that is joint ventures. So rather than looking at transaction costs up front, the money goes in the ground and gives us the opportunity to add value through that, but also test the project without sort of betting the farm. So we're being cautious that in any event, our current cash will see Penikat through the next 3 years to a scoping study, and we can acquire and advance materially a new project to also a point which would be a compelling sort of value add.
Right. So some of this then, if I look at the share register, it mostly got on board because of what you were doing in Indonesia. That didn't work out. Well, it kind of did. It gave you a lot of cash to go after what you're going at the moment. But in that sense, it was a different story. It was a different narrative. Now you're doing what you're doing. You probably will and will need to attract a new audience to this story. People may be more comfortable with this part of the world than other parts of the world. But the kind of bit that you seem to be also missing is the institutional component, as in, are you looking to sort of change the register somewhat, and what are you doing about it?
Yeah, the historical shareholder base absolutely was there behind the Indonesian asset originally. But actually, we've already been through a significant sort of change. We communicated our new sort of discovery exploration strategy to the market over a year ago now, and we acquired these assets in Scandinavia in November last year. So actually, we've had a significant volume of shares traded around the time of that acquisition and as we went through that strategic change. And actually now we very much have a shareholder base who is behind what we're doing today and our new strategy. So I would say that we've been through that. We've flushed through those shareholders that were in it only for Indonesia and perhaps weren't interested in this new strategy. They've had the chance to, and they have got out. The new shareholder base that we have there behind us is very committed to the new strategy. But you're right, it's very much a retail shareholder base. We're starting to see some institutional involvement, but that is a real focus for us. So I've just got back from being at Beaver Creek conference and a one-to-one conference in New York. We're doing more more later in the year, where we're looking at specifically targeting larger institutional potential investors. And how we're doing that is it's complementary throughout our business, but again, having the cash that we do, we're trying to establish Kingsrose as a well-rounded sort of company with a long-term strategy for success. And so that includes the broad spectrum of things. It's not just we've got a good asset and we hope to march some rigs in there and test it. You know, we've got a really thorough sort of community engagement program, and we're working hard on the sort of environmental aspects of what we're doing, and then engaging also with local governments for them to try and recognize how, you know, we can be a part of this solution to contribute critical metals to new technologies and this energy transition. So essentially all of this and you know, including working with indigenous communities is basically establishing the company as a major sort of contributor and good citizen within these communities. And it's that sort of whole rounded approach that we're recognizing that larger institutions and potentially strategic investors want to see. It's becoming more and more important. So again, you know, what we're able to do with our cash position is have the right team and the capacity to build Kingsrose into something that is a larger, sustainable business into the future and attract that more strategic, long-term, sophisticated investors.
And make some money, hopefully.
Absolutely. You know, it's not just a nice thing to say. It's good business. You know, it gives us opportunity ahead of others. It affords us social license and the ability to get into areas and drill where others maybe haven't. So yeah, it's all part of the opportunity that we see particularly in Scandinavia.